Hearing none. Consider and act upon requests for adjustments to or relief from specific charges by the district. Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed for further discussion?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Chairman. On the front page, there's a number of changes that need to be made, and those were given to the board secretary, and those will be corrected.
You're referring to item 4? The minutes?
I guess that would be the minutes. Yes.
Okay.
It's the front page of our packet.
Okay.
Cover sheet.
Yes. Larry Copeland is the first alternate. Alan Frishy is the second alternate. Paul Martin is a trustee. Jim Stinson is not the trustee. 4 changes.
I saw that and I thought, that doesn't sound right.
Okay, with those changes in mind, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Number 8,
We vote to approve.
thank you. I need help. That's always unanimous. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Gotta move ahead now.
Of course.
Received the regular monthly San Jacinto River Authority report.
I don't have anything to add to the information that's in your packet. I can answer any questions that you have on most subjects.
On page 35. It's the GRP division, and it says 3 months. Didn't that read 5 months?
Yes, sir. I just caught that earlier. It should actually say, 5 months for January, because the Woodlands division is 6 months. So it starts in September. September to January 31st is more than 3 months.
Oh,
Say that again?
So it's counting for our fiscal year starting September 1st. So it should say 5, like you said.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Have a Woodlands Division 10-year project plan.
You know, we got a presentation here. And now the copy of the presentation as well as the actual 10-year project plan binder. But so. So I think I know everybody here, and I hope you all still remember me from a few years ago. But again, I'm Aaron Schendewald, project manager with the San Jacinto River Authority. I work for the Technical Service Department, and we serve all the different divisions of the SGRA. Myself in particular, the Woodlands Division, the GRP Division. But each year, each division of the Woodlands or the SGRA updates their 10-year project plan, or some people call it a capital improvement plan. And today we're going to present a brief overview of the 10-year project plan, high level look at it. Our binders has all the projects in it for the next 10 years with descriptions, pictures, maps, schedules, and budgets for all those projects. So this presentation will address, what is the Woodlands Division, what is it comprised of, what level of service that y'all have expected in the past and we anticipate to expect in the future, then how projects are developed, an overview of the projects that are either ongoing are going on right now and will continue to go on in the next fiscal year, or ones that will start in the next fiscal year, and then a summation of the budgets for those projects. The Woodlands Division, we're the wholesale water and wastewater provider for the Woodlands in Montgomery County. In that entire system, we have over 8,000 assets, which assets are, your blowers, your motors, your pumps, your wells, your tanks, your buildings, your pipes, your valves, your manifolds, all those type of things, not the individual parts and pieces. If you looked at all those, you'd be into the tens of thousands of components, but our assets were 8,000. We put a total approximate replacement value of $2 billion. That's probably as of about 3 years ago. When we had a last full update of our replacement value database. Over the past 3 years, we've probably had a lot of inflation, so it's probably well in excess of that $2 billion. So just to give an overview of the Woodland system. Level of service, in the past, we've been requested to maintain a high level of service. We're still doing the present. And that's what we understand y'all still want in the future. So in summary, what you want is out of sight, out of mind in these systems. Turn on the faucet, clean, good water comes out of your faucet, tastes good, no odor, no color. And then you flush the toilet, you take a shower, you take a bath, you drain, the water drains away, it goes away, you don't even have to think about it. We've had only one boil water notice in the past 50 years, and that was on the customer side of the sample site, so it wasn't even in the system, but we had to report it. But overall, what you want is limited to no disruptions, and if there are any, they're very short. So how are projects determined? Well, we have a comprehensive asset management strategy. First, we developed an asset management plan that established all the criteria for the asset management of our system. From that, we developed a software and asset management system that tracks all our assets. How likely are they to fail at a certain point? What kind of remaining useful life do they have? What's the consequence of them failing? How much is the replacement cost? And then it also tracks work orders that are part of those assets by the staff as repairs are needed, as maintenance is done, and tracks the cost of those repairs and maintenance. See what is the time actually to replace the asset or the series of assets that would comprise a project. Also, we've done a number of studies. I'll talk about that here in a second. And then if there are any upcoming regulatory changes, we have to know those in advance and plan projects accordingly if facilities need to change to keep up with those regulatory changes. As I mentioned, we've done a series of studies on assets all across our system and the systems that they comprise. And you can see 5 of them right here. There's more than that, but these probably make about 95% of the projects or resulting in the projects. So you can see they deal with the wastewater strategic plan, water well rehabs, water system assets such as AC water lines, ESTs, etc., gravity sewer line projects, and then also wastewater plant 2. There are a series of projects since that facility will keep on going on into the foreseeable future. Main focus areas of the overall 10-year project plan are these projects or series of projects: waterline evaluation renewal projects, building storage tank, the water reclamation facility, which we may call wastewater treatment facility, but the term we're using for this one is water reclamation facility, and optimization of collection system that serves that new water reclamation facility. So I'll go into the projects, like I said, that are underway, going to continue, or about to start. So the first project is a condition-based assessment of all the AC water lines in the Woodlands Division system. You can see on the map, those are all the AC water lines in the bright colors, so they could make it easily seen. But what this study will do is look at all the data and record information on those water lines. It'll look on break history, but also it'll do field studying of those water lines, such as taking samples of the pipe material itself to see what kind of remaining useful life it has, putting devices into the lines to see wall thickness and other properties, again, to determine remaining useful life, soil conditions nearby, vibration, things of those natures that could affect the overall remaining life of the pipe. From all that information, and looking at socioeconomic impacts as well, if you have a line break, what does that do to the residents, to the businesses, etc. You take all information and you reprioritize the water line projects and determine the schedule, when they need to be done, and the costs that will be associated with them at that time. Project is budgeted for $1.6 million, part of the approved excess fund that was voted on last week at the trustees meeting, and it's anticipated to be completed in July of next year. Second project I'd like to highlight is the base optimization project. General goal of this project is to take 5 lift stations and replace them and their associated force mains with one gravity trunk line going from just upstream of lift station 5 down to the new water reclamation facility. By doing so and taking all those O&M costs out, all those future renewal costs out for the lift stations and force mains, over a 35-year period, you're saving roughly $30 million worth of O&M costs and renewal costs on those facilities. As you notice, they're between 40 and 50 years old altogether. Also, taking these facilities out of the neighborhoods, you will reduce potential noise and odor that could emanate from those lift stations. Elevated storage tank number 6. So this is a project, just like the last project, that was in a previous project plan, and it's ongoing. This one's in the preliminary design phase. But we're doing this because, first of all, we're under temporary variance from TCQ that said that we are under capacity for elevated storage based upon connections. And then going into the 6th and final counting, we have to keep up with that final amount of demand. And resulting from that, we have to build a new elevated storage tank for that additional capacity. Another benefit from doing so is that if you have a fire flow need in the area and you have or high demands and a nearby elevated storage tank in the same area, it's down for maintenance, you don't have to worry about losing that excess or extra capacity in storage and resulting problem pressure issues. So another benefit of having that elevated storage tank. But this is a site that we have had for quite a few years, and now we are building the tank on that site. South Shore Gravity Main Rehabilitation, another project that's been in the project plan before, and it's in final design. This is just upstream of lift station 5, so connecting to that optimization area. But you can see from a TV inspection photo done a number of years ago how deteriorated that line is. And so it'll address and rehabilitate the lines that you see in the bright colors on the map, roughly about 6,700 linear feet of pipe, or 6,600 linear feet of pipe, which are 42 inch and 36 inch in size. Wastewater facility number 2, tertiary filter improvements, another project that's been in the project plan. It's in final design phase. This facility has 3 filters. One filter was previously retrofitted between from a sand filter to a cloth media filter. Cloth media filters have been found to have 3 times the capacity of treatment of a sand filter. So what we're going to do with the other 2 basins is also retrofit them with cloth media filters. They need to be rehabbed anyway, so doing so will give us the capacity we need at the filter system to allow it to take a filter down and also be able to handle all the permitted peak flows that the facility has or could see. Right now, we have to have all 3 in order to meet that peak flow. This overall improvement, however, does not change the permit capacity of the entire plant. It just allows more capacity at this basin. Lift station number 1, gravity main bypass and decommissioning, kind of also tying into the main system at the South Shore at the far end. Lift station number 1, built 1975, it's deteriorated. The force main is very heavily deteriorated, and you can see it crosses Woodlands Parkway and continues to the south. There's no case, it's not in casing or anything like that. Replacing the force main would cost approximately $2 million to do so, and you still have to operate the lift station. And it has its own future renewal costs of approximately $900,000. However, we have a 42 inch line that was built in the early 2000s at Lakefront Circle that we can install a gravity line to and divert all that flow to that point. And that allows us to abandon the lift station entirely, not have to pay O&M costs on it, not have to pay renewal costs. And the gravity line is cheaper in itself at $1.5 million. Water plant generators, also another project that's been in the project plan before. It's in final design phase. At 3 of our water plants, these are the groundwater plants where also surface water comes in and gets blended. The backup power is provided by a series of what we call auxiliary engines, like you see at the top. These engines are roughly 30 to 40 plus years old. Parts are getting very hard to come by. Also, an operator, if there's a power outage, has to physically drive to the facility, turn on the motor, engage it to whatever it's operating, whether it be a pump or a well motor, and then you get backup power. By installing a generator at the site, it automatically comes on, and it's not fixed to one particular pump or well motor. It can operate whatever desired and switch over between one or the other, running multiple pumps or multiple wells, whatever the demands are at that time during that power outage. Water well rehabilitation project. So this is a series of projects that were identified in a master plan over the entire 10-year period. We have one underway right now. We're about to also procure another project. But this was laid out to allow us to maintain all that groundwater system in the woodlands, because surface water is still considered a supplementary source, and it's not guaranteed that every single day you will have surface water available from the plant. So we did the master plan. It based replacement schedules upon last rehab date of those wells, if it's been rehabbed at all in the past 15, 20 years or plus. Also, the amount of water that can be pumped from those wells, so that goes into the prioritization. In addition, we had the consultant did a model run of the latest models from the GMA 14, looking at aquifer declines, particularly in the Jasper aquifer. And in the case of certain wells, we'll see that in the next 20 and 30 years, we would have to lower the pump 50, 100 feet. So if we rehabilitate that well, we're going to also lower that pump if it's seen that in the future that's needed. Last project I'm going to highlight is the water reclamation facility. So just a little bit of history. We've been through strategic plan phases 1 and 2. During that time, we had that stakeholder group, which voted to move forward with a new MBR facility. And but then from now, we've been able to start land acquisition, but we're not able to move forward with any design because we have no funding to do so. So much approval will be required to proceed however that happens. And as noted, probably to y'all many times before, this current facility that we have does not meet TCEQ design criteria. So what all that means, and as far as schedule is concerned, I want to hand it over to Dan, and he's going to talk about schedules and impacts and so forth.
For a minute, I was thinking about stepping in the hall and Aaron turn around, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't do you like that. So real quick, just a couple additional slides. I know we've talked about this project a lot. It is definitely a hot topic, for all of us right now, and it is a critical project for the MUDs, for the community. We've been at the planning for 2.5, 3 years now, and there's been a number of phases and milestones and points where we've had to work with the stakeholders, work with yourselves as directors to make key decisions, going from phase 1 to the phase 2 master plan, selecting the alternatives, selecting the treatment technology. And ultimately, we are at another one of those milestones of being able to make a decision and move forward into what we've been calling a phase 3 or further design phases for the new water reclamation facility. So back at the end of phase 2, during the all MUD director meetings, we presented a schedule similar to the one up here today, to where we were working towards an April 2024 timeframe of being able to proceed with the procurement of a design engineer to go into the further design phases of this project. In order to do that, we need to be able to enter into supplemental agreements with all the MUDs for STRA to basically bond finance on the MUD's behalf to move forward with this project, because we do not have other funds on hand to be able to do that. And just as a reminder, it's not a majority vote decision by the trustees. It is something on an individual MUD basis that we need approval to be able to move forward. You may recall back January, or maybe it was the February MUD meeting, we presented a draft supplemental agreement to y'all. In there, the main focus was we're asking for $40 million to be able to move forward with these design phases and keep this progress moving and on track for the project. So a couple milestones listed out here on the timeline, but jumping all the way to the far right side, a fall 2030 completion date for the facility and startup of the new water reclamation facility. So one takeaway is this is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is at least probably a 6-year project to be able to go through the design phases, go through the construction. There's been some discussions on, well, if this project's delayed, what are the impacts? You know, can we try to quantify them in some way? So second slide here, same bullet points, same milestones, but the timelines shift. So hypothetical schedule of, say, we don't get approval to move forward with design till December 2025. They called it a 1.5 delay, which also ultimately is pushing the construction out in the same 1.5, 2-year timeframe to approximately summer of 2032. So what are the impacts of that? One of them is you're going to be fighting inflation on the capital costs of constructing a new plant. You know, so if there's delay there, there's probably going to be additional cost just due to inflation on the new construction. Something else is we've already put projects on hold and postponed major improvement rehabilitation projects at the wastewater treatment facility. Because we want to try to avoid any sunk costs that if we're moving towards having a whole new facility, it doesn't make sense to invest, you know, millions of dollars in improving, replacing existing aging infrastructure. But as that date moves out for a startup of a new facility, there's potential impacts on, we may not be able to delay things further. And there may be components of that facility that we would have to go and replace to be able to maintain the current level of service. So 2 columns up here on the slide. First one on the left, there are items that we've identified that would most likely have to be addressed in some way if that construction time period is pushed beyond the 2030 completion date, our current proposed schedule. On the right-hand side, another column, that is if the construction is pushed out even further to after, say, a 2033 date, those items become a concern and most likely would have to be addressed in some way, in addition to the column on the left. So we've gone through, we've presented this at the MUD meetings this week. We presented it at the trustees last week. We presented it to the audit committee meeting. And a question we've got is, you know, is there a way we can try to put dollars to these and quantify it? We've heard that, we've received that request. We are currently working with a consultant to develop what best approach we could take to help build costs of a level of confidence that we have in presenting to the directors. If that turns into a significant cost and effort for them to do that, that is above and beyond the current scope, budget, and what we've been essentially approved to do. So standard protocol there would be taking it back to the trustees for approval of, hey, do you want us to move forward with some additional cost estimating efforts to look at this?
Is part of the cost analysis going to be to break it down to estimate what it would be per 1,000 gallons to the retail customer? Can that be part of it?
That is the next agenda item here. Great anticipation.
So I will say, yeah, Eric and Adam and Brian have the next agenda item that is going to help, I think, with that. But the main thing that we wanted to show here is there's impacts to delaying this project, whether it's dollars, whether it's risk of operation. And, you know, our preference would be to, you know, be able to move forward into the design phases, you know, in the near future and keep this project on track. So I can take questions. There's 2 more slides left from Aaron too, just to summarize the total cost. 3 more. 3 more. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. Wrapping up, this slide shows an overview of the budgets for the projects that are underway or about to start, that are R&R funded. Top, and then also we have remaining 2017 bonds that we're able to utilize to finance 3 projects for a little over $21 million worth. Now, as far as new bonds are concerned, you know, water reclamation facilities, one project, there's several other projects on here. See, to be able to do all that over a 10-year period, the bonds would have to total up to roughly under $600 million when you combine the water and wastewater system improvements. All in all done for the 10-year project plan total, R&R funded projects over that 10-year period amount to a little over $87 million. Again, we had those 3 projects we could fund with 2017 bonds for a little over $21 million. And then all those projects from the water and wastewater system that are currently unfunded. But so we need something mechanism to fund those a little under $600 million for a total over the 10-year period of a little over $700 million. With that, I'll open up to any more questions that y'all may have.
Get some light, please.
Sure, and we can take it off. And if you have any future questions,
So I do have a question. Refresh me on the wastewater treatment facility number 1. Was the intent to eliminate chlorine, the use of chlorine?
yeah, take that. Yes.
The intent is to look at UV light as the main disinfection, but we are going to evaluate UV versus chlorine and other disinfectants.
The reason I raised that question because I don't recall a clear answer to that, and you just expressed that it's not clear at this point. But my reference is to a Courier newspaper article of Tuesday, March 19th. And they talk about EPA bans last type of asbestos still in use. And there's a considerable discussion about asbestos in general. But what is concerned here, it says, this paragraph, while chlorine is a commonly used disinfectant in water treatment, there are only 8 chlorine alkali plants in the US that still use asbestos diaphragms to produce chlorine and sodium hydroxide. The plants are mostly located in Louisiana and Texas. So the question I have is, what is San Jacinto River Authority currently buying? Is it a diaphragm with asbestos from a Texas and Louisiana plant?
So our chlorine is made from a facility that does use the asbestos alkali to create the chlorine. So we only buy the chlorine from them, but their plant has the items that are going to be banned.
So I hope that San Jacinto River Authority is not going to wait the 2 years or whatever period of time EPA has given them for everyone to make that final conversion. Do you have any idea, or have you studied the issue at all?
We just got notified of it ourselves this morning, and so we're currently still looking into it. First thing was to verify, does our facility, our plant that we get our chlorine from, does it actually use the asbestos, which it said it does. Next is, okay, what are y'all going to do on your side? Because there's only a few places we can get chlorine from because you can't ship it that far. So when Houston goes down, Houston plant goes down, we can get it from Dallas, but it comes in via rail. So now we're looking to see, is there any other sources of chlorine that we could use? Because even if wastewater plant 1, if we can find something to do in the interim, we still have the 2 other facilities, plus the water system that uses chlorine as well. In the water system, there's no other real disinfectant that TCQ allows for disinfecting outside of ozone. But then you're talking a huge capital cost to convert everything to ozone, which is not 100% effective. So it's wastewater plant is a concern, but the entire system is a large concern.
if y'all have any additional questions that y'all have, you can forward them to Eric and get them to us. Thank you.
Next item is a discussion on potential funding alternatives.
In front of you, you have two documents that we'll be looking at. One looks like this, the summary of funding options, and one is kind of accordion pullout item. In response to questions that I was receiving from directors, asking about, well, we're talking about these large numbers for this infrastructure 10-year plan. What is that? What's the bottom line to the customer? How would we fund this? What are our options? What do those options look like to the customer? So working with Brian and Maureen and Adam, we put together a summary of options sheet that I wanted to go through with you today. No decision to be made today. I'm not going to go through every single piece of it, but wanted to give you the highlights of what each, kind of the concepts of what each includes. The first option is essentially the water, through the water and sewer rates. That's where SJRA would sell its own bonds and then identify a wholesale rate that it would take to cover the debt on those bonds. And then that wholesale rate would run through your water and sewer bills. Estimating roughly kind of, it changes slightly for each district, but in general, it's in that. So by the time we get to the end of selling those bonds in 2035, you're looking at a potential water bill of somewhere around $250 for the typical customer.
Is that per month?
Yes.
And it's typical 10,000 water, 6,000 sewer.
Currently, that's what it is. Yes. Absolutely. And the current average is about 104, just to give you reference. $104. Average, a typical water bill.
And does that include the surface water conversion fee as well? Okay.
Inside of it, yes. Which right now is, well, about $32. So on 10,000. So that'd be option one. Option two would be, we talked previously about a potential rollback tax election. That would be where you go back to the voters and ask their authorization to adjust your current M&O tax rate to another level or another number that would be equivalent to creating enough revenue to pay back your share of the bonds that, again, SJRA would sell through that. And so to show you what the effects of that would be, you can turn to the large document accordion folded on page 2, second from the right. You can see we put a red box essentially around where the kind of the high mark would be. The tax rate would need to be increased by 22.6 cents. In addition to where you're at today, that would create an annual tax increase of the typical home or the average home of about $982. And so that comes to about $82 or so a month if you looked at it on a monthly basis. And then there's, looking at the pro cons, there's some different pro cons from a deductibility standpoint, lifeline rate standpoint, looking at folks that have some protections on the exemption side, on the tax side. So you can look at a number of the different pro cons for each of those two options. Option 3 is a scenario going back to the.
Are you taking questions or do you want to go through it all first?
Whichever.
All right, so on this rollback tax election, let's establish the base. First of all 10 MUDs have to approve, for example, this selection.
No.
So if you had,
All 10 MUDs have to vote on a selection, but they don't all have to choose the same selection. It would be preferable to keep consistency across the MUDs if that occurred. Because, one of the things that Jim worked real hard on, and we are too, is to try to keep consistent water and sewer rates. And right now you have 2 districts that are different than the other 8. Ideally, if the districts went the rollback route, you could theoretically, if those districts chose, kind of equalize their tax piece to where we could equalize the water and sewer rates. Potentially, you could put a penny or two, whatever it is, on the tax side and pull all the rates uniformly. But if there's a district that goes the water and sewer rate route, then, and others go the tax route, then, theoretically their water and sewer bill would be significantly higher.
my concern with this option 2, or my concerns, is that any MUD that had a negative, they had the election, it came back negative, no, we don't want to pay these additional property taxes, then then what does that MUD do?
Option 1 or 3.
So why would we offer this if their vote doesn't matter?
Well, I think the point of this exercise is to show how districts could manage the overall debt load. Because we talked about this big number that, is, scary. 600 million in debt, 700 million in costs. How are you going to pay for that? You hear some people have kind of done their own back of the envelope numbers on what it would do to water bills. And so we felt like it was important to go through and come up with some scenarios for how that debt load could be managed before the boards considered taking action on the first supplemental agreement for the first $40 million tranche. So you have a picture of what the ultimate potential debt load would be and the different ways it could possibly be paid for to show what that would look like.
I understand the objective. I'm just concerned that the only way that, in my mind, that option 2 would be a viable alternative is if you tell the voters up front, if you come back with a negative, we will do another way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way that you can sell. I'm not a politician. To me, the way that you would want to educate the public about a potential tax rate increase is to show what the alternative is. Because if you just show a proposal for a tax rate increase in a vacuum, then, I mean, the answer is going to be no every day.
Exactly.
So you have to have it compared to another option. And so the other options are 1 and 3. And I think what Adam and Eric have put together here shows to my reading that a resident, because of both the homestead exemption and because of the additional 6th and final accounting that's attributed to the commercial district of Metro, it's not yet being utilized, so it's not flowing through on water sewer rates. But because of those 2 factors, you can get a better deal for residents for MUD 67 of 982 versus was it 1,752 per year on option 1. Because $146 times 12.
Then you get into issues like, well, how many less than 50% are not average, so they're less than the average.
Less than or greater than.
And the other half are going to be greater
But
than.
this is really the only way that we could find to be able to target the benefits that we have in the woodlands of such a strong commercial base to benefit the residents. Because if you're doing it solely through water sewer rates, you're not going to get that benefit. But through the tax rate, when you've got a large number of commercial units, some of which are not online but have capacity, and the 20% max residential homestead exemption plus over 65 disabled exemptions, this was the best way to target the benefit to residential homeowners. But there's no perfect answer.
No, I appreciate yeah, got it.
It's a known number versus water and sewer usage, which would change year over year.
And what's the term on the bond? The bond's 30 years. So if during that 30-year period, the Woodlands decides to incorporate, that would be rolled into the cities.
Correct, because basically all the contracts that the MUD has, the incorporating city would step into the shoes of those respective districts and have those obligations.
And this is also based on
If the
January
MUD's
1,
resolved.
2023 certified value, so it does not incorporate any kind of inflation or appreciation of home values. So that will help the situation, but we're strictly looking at it in the vacuum right now, saying as of today, what is the impact to the resident?
So option three, to move on, brings it back into the water bill. But it has more of a fixed infrastructure renewal type fee. And for the purposes of this evaluation, we use 100 for water for residential and 200 for commercial across all of the woodlands. And as you can see, that generates about 43, just over 43 million a year. So you extend that out 10 years and you're not quite to 591, but you're close. You might be able to buy down some debt with cash on hand potentially with this option, but this again causes the water bill to be a little bit higher, particularly for those, fixed income, low water users type of customers.
What's the rationale for 2X for commercial?
A little bit greater demand on the system overall.
I mean, do we have data that supports twice for commercial versus one for homeowner?
They got some information on it, but I believe we do. And then option four, which we really didn't develop fully because it's pretty problematic, but I'll please explain what it entails. It would require going back to the voters to get bond authorization for the MUDs to do their own bond applications. That would be on the debt service side. In option two, the scenario contemplated 8 bond apps or bond elections for bond issues for SGRA. And so as you can imagine, across 10 months, that's 80 bond issues, which is not only logistically problematic, but it's also more expensive if you think about all the issuance costs for all those bond issues. So it's not really one of the preferred top 3 options at this point.
You'd probably be the only one here still administering that after all that time.
So no decision to be made. I would recommend you dig into it a little bit, digest it. If you have any other questions or comments or think of other pros and cons for any of the items, please send them my way and we'll update it. There's going to be a pretty significant, whichever route the MUDs go, there's going to be a pretty significant public education outreach that's necessary to just educate folks on what's coming.
I don't know if this is the proper place to bring it up, but let me do it anyway. At the last trustee meeting, in the presentation of the 10-year plan, we got to that chart which had the list of items, 2 lists of items, one on the left and one on the right. And due to the reaction of at least one and potentially 2 different trustees, I fear that there still is either not understanding or purposely looking at another option in presenting that data. And that is, what does it cost to replace item for item for item that we currently have without, bringing the whole thing together? It's like the 2-year project and the $2 million, went up in smoke and it didn't happen, at least from the comments I heard at that one meeting. And you may have more information, but that's my sense. And so I think we need to address that question and get that resolved before you can even move on to these other options. And, would the cash flow be the same if 2 MUDs refuse to, for example, 1 or 2 MUDs refuse to go along with any of these options? It's just my observation. Maybe I'm out of touch, but that's what I see.
That's a good one. Item 11, receive the update on Bear Branch, Panther Branch, and Research Forest Drive Drainage Improvement Project.
Afternoon. We have consultants delivered us our draft report that has two different versions or two concepts in there. We've asked him for an opinion of cost for both of those. We should have those probably June, where we can sit down with you all and bring you up to date on what the two options are, what the costs are, and Apple. And then also brief the other muds that are involved.
Have we established the fact that we're going to achieve the desired results of a 2 to 3 foot reduction?
We haven't gotten to 2 to 3 foot. We've gotten to 1.5 to 2.
Jim, is that enough to satisfy?
It's going in the right direction and it will help. I'm not prepared to tell you.
Because we've raised that question. You know, we said, okay, what happened to the 2 to 3?
I think that range would keep Research Forest open, which in my opinion, that's pretty critical. If you're going to do this and you're going to have research continuing to be unpassable, that's a deal. But if you can get enough to at least keep Research Forest Drive open in similar events that we've had, that makes it more palatable.
And the two options, one of them includes some pretty good underbrushing out in the reserve to be able to bring it down even more. But I think it still leaves 6 inches on Research Forest, 6 inches of water over the crown of Research Forest. So we're curious to see where the costs come in at and then go from there.
What's the schedule for those numbers?
I'm thinking we can have a presentation for you in June. It's taking longer than it should.
Well, yeah, I expected something in December, this past December.
That was the schedule. Other questions? Thank y'all.
Thank you. Item 12, the attorney's report.
No journal items to discuss today.
Thirteen is consider and act upon the updated drought contingency plan.
We are still working with the consultant and River Authority on those two plans, so we're going to defer that this month and have it on your agenda next month.
14 is consider adoption of the resolution concerning developed district status for 2024 tax year.
Got a copy of that resolution in your packet starting on page 39. It does reflect, based on LJA's certification on the Exhibit A, that 67 remains a developing district for 2024.
Very good.
You need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 15 is the general manager's report.
All right, just have a couple things to add. Myself and several directors from across the MUDs attended the Gulf Coast Water Conservation Association Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium a few weeks ago. It was a good event, educational on what folks are doing across the state. So that was good. That was headed up by Paul Nelson. I'm MUD director and one was here for MUD 7. I attended and joined Ed Shackelford and Aubrey Spear to make a presentation at George's Coffee on Monday morning. The presentation consisted of a summary of what the responsibilities of the MUDs is, what the responsibilities of WWA as well as SRA. And then we talked a little bit about the infrastructure projects that are coming in the 10-year plan, as well as, we didn't get into as much detail about the funding, but presented that there would need to be decisions being made and that the MUDs were contemplating those over the next months or so.
How large is that George's group?
It was about 75, 80 people, something like that. Did want to report that WWA won an award. AWWA and WEAT, Water Environment Association of Texas, put out an award, honored us with the Watermark Award for Communication Excellence. We applied for that, I guess, last fall, and it was what we submitted on was our work on the 2023 Strategic Communication Plan that was developed through the PEC. So we're really excited about that. I know that communications has really come a long way, and last year we did a pretty good job. So with that, I'll kick it over to John.
Afternoon. You have your communications report on page 54 at the end of the packet. I wanted to start off by just giving you an update on how that annual report performed. So you sent that out last month as a stuffer in the water bill and then as email. So you have around 7% of your folks on that email contact list and another 70% or so on your that receive a hard copy bill. So it's important that you send it out both ways to get that overlap. And it looks like you did reach a lot of folks. Your daily visitation rate to the MUD page more than doubled in the 2 weeks following receipt of that. So that's good. That'll taper off. But you know, when we send folks MUD stuff, they want it. They open those emails, they read it, and they respond to it. So it's good that we communicated on that. Water Smart, the bottom 54, just a couple stats on that. An encouraging uptick in monthly registration. So last year, we averaged 170 registrations per month. That has doubled since the beginning of the year, primarily due to the fact that folks are going there to sign up for AutoPay through Water Smart. And it should continue on that trend as we move everybody on AutoPay to Water Smart. That'll be their sole option, which is great because it's a one-stop shop. Now they're there to pay. They can further explore all the great things that Water Smart can do for them. So a good thing. A couple examples of current marketing materials on the following pages there. And then your outreach calendar is on page 56. So this is what we have been up to the last month or so and what we'll be up to in the coming month as far as in-person events. If you want to highlight that emergency preparedness event, that's a good one. If you want to come on out and join us and talk to folks, that's a township event. So that'll be held at Town Hall on Saturday, April 13. We'll be there from 9 to noon. Again, you're welcome to come out for any portion of that and connect with folks. And then finally, you have the opportunity, if you so choose, to stuff this month's water bill with a 1/3 page flyer on the MUD elections. So this is a very straightforward, simple when and where to vote with a candidate list as well. This is obviously non-advocacy, just straightforward information. One side, 3rd page. And you're looking at about $250 to make that happen.
In our case, it would seem that each MUD has a different number of precincts that they're involved, but ours is probably the largest, or one of the largest for sure. And I'm not sure. I think we ought to personally leave it up to the individual candidates to take care of that.
This would just be information to, what's the date? What's the date? Where's the?
Yeah.
And it would be let me ask this. Is the information, can this information be made available just on the MUD website? Where if somebody's interested, we could say there, you get it there?
Yes. That information will be available on the website.
Are you allowed to put incumbent behind existing directors?
According to Brian, yes. We don't have to.
Well, I think we should if it's available.
Is the plan to put it in order of the position on the ballot?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, follow that order. Other intentions for the website, we haven't finalized anything, but we'll have a banner most likely on the homepage saying when election day is and then when early voting occurs. And then we'll have that basic information available on each individual MUD page. Candidate list with no other information about the candidates other than what is currently on there, which is their financial disclosure report.
It's been presented to the MUDs prior to us. How have they?
All have approved. 47 decided to put a QR code on the right side of it instead of the putting the candidates there. It would direct the QR to the county's website
Montgomery County Elections website.
to gain that whatever information's there. Right now, there's I don't think anything there on that website, right? Not yet.
I haven't seen anything. I couldn't find anything.
That's been the only change. Everyone else has gone forward with it.
What about an e-blast to the MUDs? Has that been discussed to do an e-blast at some point prior to the election, just with this type of information?
We want to make sure that everything's just very factual, no advocacy for anything.
I would mean, no, an e-blast just with this type of information.
It hasn't been brought up at this point.
But we could, yes, we can look at that and then also including it in the Woodlands Water Weekly, and then our social media posts.
But e-blast is no expense, just the time to send it. So I like that approach, just personally.
I agree.
The caveat being, you guys, your MUD has 67% of your accounts on our email list.
And this would only go to those that are getting,
Same
Which I think
with the annual update, you know.
I think it's a fewer number than from a percent standpoint that actually get a bill by mail.
About equal?
It's pretty similar, 72% mail to bill.
My recommendation is the e-blast.
Second, that.
We need a vote, just
Further
direct.
discussion. Okay. All in favor?
Bet.
Aye.
Thank you.
Water trustees report, Woodlands Water trustees.
I don't have anything to add other than what's been previously discussed. I do have, I see we're running out of options here. I did have one item I'd like to discuss, and I see there's only one left from San Jacinto here, but can you give this board an update on what's happening with the GRP excess funds and the proposed allocation or disposition of those?
We've made some recommendations to our finance committee. They've essentially approved those recommendations. We have a presentation planned for the GRP meeting on Monday. Starts at 11:30.
GRP meeting, that's Monday.
The 25th.
Okay.
And without giving you numbers, I can tell you there'll be a certain amount that would go towards debt defeasance
And the reason for that?
to help pay down some of the bond debt
Is that because the interest rates are very high or?
No, it's
what's your-
because payment that we received from two of the participants that were not paying, we're gonna take that lump sum and pay down debt. And then we're gonna take a certain amount of money and rebate it to the participants. And it's based on, we evaluated it based on the amount of the drought years of 22 and 23 and the volumes. And so it's pro rata share based on volumes of the participants.
So your calculation includes groundwater and surface water?
So trying to remember percentages. Roughly the woodlands is about 15%, 16%.
Yeah, it's not going to be significant, not significant.
It's not as big as the Woodlands Division excess funds that you all just approved, but it's.
Okay, I don't need numbers. But when people, raise the number 40, 50 million, everybody has, dollar signs lighting up, but
It's not like 40
No.
billion in the state.
Oh.
Rainy day. And then there'll be a certain amount that goes back to the general fund of the GRP.
So included in that calculation would be the two entities that have current lawsuits with the SJRA, namely the city of Conroe and the city of Magnolia, that you would be giving rebates at the sole discretion of the GRP division and approved by the SJRA board of directors.
This is big credits. And the reason they would get whatever the credit is their pro rata share is because the amount that they owe us is still on the books. It's not been written off and we intend to collect it.
That's really what I'm driving at. And I think the optics are horrible to be giving credits, rebates, whatever you want to call it, to people that are in years delinquency of the bills.
Understand?
I just think that's a horrible example.
I understand. But that's what our finance committee has approved.
The new general manager got a say in that?
Yes. So did the senior management staff.
We'll leave it in Mike Mooney's good hands.
Thank you.
I
I have an idea. I may present Monday.
Other questions before
Thank you.
Just curious, any new court dates set or what are court dates set for?
No new court dates. All three suits are in some form of waiting on a judge or a court to render the antitrust, waiting on a verdict. The breach case, we're waiting on a verdict out of the Ninth Court of Appeals. And then on the immunity case, we're waiting on a verdict from the Texas Supreme Court.
Pretty good.
I haven't been advised of any need to have a closed session. Okay, going on to item 19. Wait. Any matters to be placed on the upcoming agenda or future agenda? Meeting adjourned.